Welcome to this special video where we're exploring what would happen if the Straw Hats from One Piece were turned into Pokemon. Not if they had Pokemon partners, but if they themselves got turned into Pokemon. Join us as we dive into the world of Pokemon and explore how the Straw Hats would fit in, what type of Pokemon they would be, and what their ultimate attack moves would be. I got this idea because I saw a small TikTok from this guy over here. His name is Kyle D. Mega. He actually makes quite interesting TikToks about turning One Piece characters or other anime characters into Pokemon, and I thought, why not take his idea and also add a few of my own ideas on top of that. So we're just going to go walk through everything that he decided on and also my own ideas, because some of his decisions, well, I don't necessarily completely agree with them, but it's his own thing and I made my own additions to it. But now, as I said, first of all, let's take a look at Luffy. Luffy is the captain of the Straw Hat Pirates. Luffy was previously known as the 5th Yonko, but now he has officially become a Yonko. So let's see what kind of Yonko he would be as a Pokemon. First of all, Kyle gave Luffy 2 different abilities to pick from, because most Pokemon have either 2 or 3 different abilities, with hidden abilities here and there, but the first ability he gave Luffy is this one, Unaware. Unaware in itself, the name doesn't make too much sense, but as you see, the Japanese name actually translates into Airhead, which very much fits Luffy, especially if you think back to Skypiea, where he technically had a form we in this fandom call Airhead Luffy. Unaware or Airhead is known that it just ignores the stat changes for Pokemon. So that means Luffy can attack enemies no matter how much they buff themselves or do other things to themselves, like increase their defense or increase their special defense, all these different things. Luffy just ignores it and just makes his own thing. He doesn't care about what the other people think and other people do. He's just doing his own thing and it works out one way or the other. The second ability he gave Luffy was Poison Heal, which it's easy to understand he picked this ability because of Impel Down, where he got very much poisoned by Magellan, but he got healed and thus Luffy got a resistance to poison afterwards. But he doesn't really get healed by poison, and that is why I thought this ability doesn't fit too well. So instead of Poison Heal as a second ability, I would give Luffy Guts. Guts is an ability where if your Pokemon, or in this case if Luffy, suffers like a status condition, paralyzation, burning, being poisoned or other things, he grows stronger. His attacks grow by the strength of 50%, just because he's so gutsy, and thus his attacks grow in power. This very much fits into Luffy's thing with that even if he has been defeated a lot or if he's suffering from something, he is going to pull through, and with the power of his willpower and all these other things, his attacks grow stronger and stronger, even if his body is basically on the verge of breaking down. But now let's get to his first attack. As you can see on Luffy's board here, you can already see all of the different things, but Luffy's first attack would be Extreme Speed, which is basically the idea of him going gear second, or maybe Snake Man, because both of these abilities are for speeds, and so Luffy is very fast. But that also begs the discussion if Luffy is faster than Sanji, or if Sanji is still the fastest member of the Straw Hat Pirates. You can comment down in the comments if you think that Sanji or Luffy is faster. I am very much interested in that. Extreme Speed is a powerful move that also gives you priority before your enemy, and that shows that Luffy and other people are faster than their enemies and can just speed blitz them. But Luffy is not all about speed. He also has a few other things, like for example his Fire Punch move. Fire Punch is obviously because of Red Hawk, Red Rock, and all these other fire abilities Luffy has. We know that he's rubber. There isn't really a rubber attack in Pokemon, but we converted just other things that he can do and it works fine for his abilities. So Fire Punch makes sense because of his fire abilities, and I still don't know really how it works. Is it because of the friction of rubber, or is Luffy actually part Lunarian as well? We might never really learn. But then let's go to a move where Luffy actually buffs himself as well. We've seen it with Luffy drinking water in Alabasta, and also in a few other scenarios, Luffy bulking up, and suddenly his muscles increase in size and he grows stronger, and bulk up not only increases the strength, the attack stat of the Pokemon, but also the defense stat of the Pokemon. So in this case, bulk up very much resembles Armament Haki, and that's obviously Luffy is very trained in armor and haki, both in the normal form and the advanced form, so bulk up was a nice fit here as well, which Kyle made the right decision for. Then the next move was Hammer Arm. Hammer Arm seems like it. If you look at this animation of Hammer Arm, it just appears like an Gear 3rd move, or just one of the moves where Luffy increases the size of his fist and his arm tremendously before striking down the enemy. So this moveset for Luffy would be a Gear 2nd attack for speed, a Fire type move for diversity of having different elements, Bulk Up, which is armor and haki to give him more defense and offense abilities as well, and Hammer Arm just for his strongest attack, which is a Gear 3rd or Gear 4th ultimate ability. But Luffy is not the only Straw Hat we need to talk about today. There are many other members as well, and this is another member, Zorro here, who also Kyle also would give Guts. I know that this is already doubling 2 abilities, but Zorro, just like Luffy, is very gutsy, and if Zorro is in some sort of bad condition, he sometimes just goes stronger and grows stronger. I mean, think about it. Even when he fought against King in the Wano arc recently, he wasn't even at full power. Before he was battling against King, he was also battling against Big Mom and Kaido together with Luffy, Law, Kids, and Killer. But then he got very much hurt because he deflected their strongest attack, which was the biggest feat Zorro has shown us so far. And then basically all of the bones in his body got broken down. And he could only fight against King because of the Mink's special medicine. And that is very gutsy in itself, but that also means he wasn't at full power when fighting against King. Now, we know that Zorro, at the current stage that he was in Wano, wasn't able to defeat Kaido, but he was way stronger than King. If anything, Zorro could have replaced either Kid or Law in a fight against Big Mom, and they still would have won in my opinion. But now let's get to the second ability for Zorro, and then we get to the third ability, which you can't see right now because I chose that one myself. The second ability is Sharpness, which obviously fits into Zorro being a sword fighter because Sharpness is an ability that boosts the strength of slicing moves by 50%. And so all of the moves that Zorro uses are also categorized as slicing move because he uses a sword, very much fitting, and I think Sharpness is even a better fit than Guts. So this is the ability I would mainly use on my Zorro Pokemon. And the third ability I would give Zorro would be Intrepid Sword. This is the ability of the legendary Pokemon from Sword and Shield, Zacian. So this ability just boosts the Pokemon's attack stat when they enter the battle. Compared to Sharpness, which is just a 50% increase in every slicing type attack, Intrepid Sword is a general attack increase for every attack that Zorro would use, because he also can punch the enemy and other things, even though he mainly uses sword attacks, so just in general strength attack boost is also very neat for Zorro. And as the description says, Intrepid Sword increases the attack stat of the Pokemon with this ability by 1 stage. A 1 stage increase is also basically a 50% power increase. But there's the question, because I am actually not an expert in Pokemon battles, how these two abilities converge, because one ability, Sharpness, increases the power of moves by 50%, while Intrepid Sword increases the attack stat by 50% basically. That means it's with an attack that normally has 60 power, Sharpness increases that move to 90 power. But instead of increasing the move from 60 to 90, and Intrepid Sword instead buffs the attack stat of Zorro to give him more strength with that variation. It's just a slight difference, but I feel like they could have different usages and one might be better than the other, but I'm no expert, so let's just ask Wolfly VGZ in the future. Then Zorro's first attack would be Sacred Sword. All of these attacks, as you can see, are based on swords and are physical moves. Not all of them. The last one I decided on myself is actually a special move, but I think for Zorro we could flavor that into being a physical move as well. So let's speed through them. Sacred Sword is just a sword fighting attack, very strong, and it's not Zorro's ultimate attack, yes. Then we have Sword Stance, which is a boosting attack once again, so Zorro can increase his strength even more to prepare for his ultimate attack, because even Zorro has been able to increase his attack power with things like armor and haki, or just suddenly getting more muscles on his body. That's also something that he did in the past. I don't know how, but he did it. Then Kyle gave him Kowtow Cleave, which is a new move from Generation 9 that can't miss. But I very much disagree with that, because I wouldn't say that Zoro would ever kowtow to anyone, so I don't think, even if it was some sort of sneaky move, it's very much below Zoro to do anything like that. So instead of kowtow cleave, I decided to give Zoro a move called Hurricane, which is because Zoro always uses things like Tatsumaki, which is called also Dragon Twister. So we could also have given him the move Twister, which is a dragon attack, but Hurricane is also very much fitting for this power, and Hurricane is a strong move that can also miss. And as you can see, it's a special move, but as I said, I would flavor it into a physical move for Zoro himself, because he uses the physical force to create a tornado and not a special move that's like magic. His fourth attack would be Psycho Cut or Psycho Kata, just to give him some coverage as a psychic move as well, so he can hit some other people as super effective as well, because normally with his fighting attacks and other things he wouldn't have as much coverage. But now let's go on to the next character, which is Nami. Nami, especially in the earlier parts of the story, as you can see from these abilities, you can already see one is for the very early, basically East Blue Nami, and one is for later Alabastas, time skip and everything else. Pickpocket Nami is pre-time skip, and then post-time skip, or also at the later part of pre-time skip, she would have the ability Lightning Rods. Very much vary in between each other, because Pickpocket is just that Nami is stealing stuff from other people, and Lightning Rod is an ability where every electric move gets sucked up on Nami, and her special attack stat because of that rises by 1 stage, which makes all of her abilities stronger and stronger, because all of these attacks also are special in Nami's case. First of all, Nami has a setup thing, which is Rain Dance. Rain Dance is very much needed for another attack that you can already see, because normally the next attack, which is Thunder, has a chance to miss, but if it's raining, Thunder has a 100% chance to hit. With an increase in special attack and also already 110% power, and because Nami is an electric type, this power of the move, which is 110, gets further boosted by Step. Step is a thing where if you have the same type as the attack, the power of the attack gets boosted by another 50%. So Nami's Thunder is a very powerful thing, and it very much fits into her character as well, if she uses Zeus or just if she uses her Thunder Tempo as well. Both of those attacks are quite strong. I mean, her Thunder Lance was enough to hurt ulti Ancient Zoan, which is quite a feat. Then the next tag, while not strong, it's a thing that Nami has to do. It's a signature move of Cast Form, and it's called Weather Ball. In my previous video where I talked about what if the Straw Hats had Pokemon, I also gave Nami Cast Form. So her having the signature move of that Cast Form makes a lot of sense in this version of the video. And finally, her last tag is Defog. Defog is not that important of an ability. It is used to clear away terrains, which are another factor in Pokemon battles, but for us it's not that important. It's just Nami has weather control, Defog uses like fog and can get rid of fog, so it's just something to give Nami to have more control of weather. Now let's get to Sanji. Sanji, as you can see, is a fire fighting type. Sanji has the abilities Thermal Exchange and Opportunist. Thermal Exchange is the ability of the Dragon-type Pokemon from Generation 9. And this is a move that if you get hit by Fire-type moves, you cannot be burned, and your attack stat also gets increased by 1 stage. So this is for Sanji's resistance against fire, which doesn't necessarily exist, but I mean, he uses fire in his abilities with Diablo Jumbo and Ifrit Jumbo, so if he could get hurt by fire type attacks, it would be kind of weird. So it very much fits in here, and an attack boost for all of his physical attacks are also very strong. Now his second ability, according to Kyle, would be Opportunist. It's an ability where if your enemy increases their strength, your strength also increases. And I don't know why he chose that. I don't really see it as an ability that Sanji would have. So instead of Opportunist, I gave Sanji a different ability, which is the counterpart to Zoro's Intrepid Sword. It's called Dauntless Shield, and it's the signature ability of Zamazenta, the other legendary Pokemon from Generation 8. This Pokemon's ability increases the defense stat when the Pokemon enters battle. So this is also my idea to basically flavor it. Instead of calling it Dauntless Shield or Shield of Fortitude, we could call it Germa Modification. We all know that Sanji has a lot of durability because of the Germa's modifications, so him having a higher defense stat would just fit into his character as well. But now let's get into the 4 or more attacks that Sanji would have. First of all, his signature attack would be Blaze Kick. Obviously, I already talked about the moves he has. Ifrit Jumba, Diablo Jumba. Those two things are just him igniting his feet and then kicking the enemy. So Blaze Kick is the obvious pick for that, and I think it's very much best attack Sanji could ever have. Then we have High Jump Kick, which is just jump. High Jump Kick would be Sanji's version of using Sky Walk or Blue Walk. He has both these different versions, and then use the height to jump down and kick on the enemy, which is High Jump Kick. It's a very strong move, but it can also backfire if he misses the attack. Then his third attack would be Order Up. This is a Dragon type attack, but I don't really know why it's Dragon type, probably because it's connected to Tatsugiri, but it's just that somebody just gives you sushi, and because Sanji's a cook, Order Up very much fits him, and I think this is also Order Up and Blaze Kick are very much the signature moves of Sanji because he's a cook but also a flame kicking fighter. And then his last ability given from Kyle would be Focus Energy, because Sanji can do critical hits. I don't know why he gave that, so instead of Focus Energy, I gave Sanji Extreme Speed as well. Because in my opinion, Sanji is the second fastest character, at least in the Straw Hats, if he is slower than Luffy, but we are not even sure if he is slower than Luffy. However, let's stop talking about Sanji and let's get into the next character, which is obviously Chopper. Chopper is the next Straw Hat, and he is a normal fighting style. I think you could, instead of giving him normal, you could give him ice because he's a reindeer. You could also give him grass because of the same I think that he lives in nature. I think instead of something like normal, ice or grass would be much better for Chopper, especially because the Luffy in this version is also normal fighting, and having two members of the crew just be the same sort of type is a bit boring in my opinion. The first ability from Chopper would be Reckless. It's an ability that powers up moves that have recoil damage, and that's why Kyle gave Chopper all kinds of moves that have recoil. But this ability only increases the damage by 20%, so instead of a 50% increase like Sharpness, it's only 20%, which is a bit lower, but it's still very nice for Chopper to have something that increases his recoil attacks. And the recoil things, I think he gave that for Chopper in the sense of him using Monster Point and losing control of himself, which is somewhat like recoil. But instead of Reckless, I like the other two abilities, the one that Kyle gave him and the one that I gave him, a bit more than Reckless. Second ability here is Regenerator. This is a play on Chopper being a doctor, and that whenever he leaves battle, he recovers a bit of HP. But this is a bit weird because Chopper in this way only recovers his own health, but not the health of other Pokemon. And he's a doctor, so he would focus more on other people than himself. So I feel like something that heals other Pokemon would be much better, so that's a move that we see later down the line. The ability that I gave Chopper is called Anger Point, or Rage Point if you translate the Japanese thing. I thought this one is very much fitting because Chopper's abilities are all like point things, with Brain Point, Jump Point, Kung Fu Point, Monster Point. All these things are points, so him having an ability called Anger Point would just be a perfect fit. And Anger Point is a strong ability as well. It relies a bit on the case if your enemy critical hits you, but if this scenario takes place, that would mean that Chopper's entire strength gets maxed out. And if one increase in the attack stat is already 50%, that would mean that 6 increases in the attack stat would be insanely strong, and Chopper would massacre the entirety of the enemy team. Then I also gave Chopper a fourth ability just for the fun of it. It's not very much the focus. I just gave him Zero to Hero, which is the signature ability of Palafin from the latest game, and it's the ability if you switch him out and in again, he turns into his hero form. And this is just my homage for this character here, Chopper Man. Chopper Man is obviously not Chopper, he's an entirely different character, and this superhero would have increased stats and just be completely stronger than his normal form, or whoever it is. Now let's get to attacks. As you can see here, the attacks are all recoil based, besides the last move that I decided myself. Head Smash is a very strong move with 150 base power and 80% accuracy. Chopper is not a rock type, but maybe he has some sort of form change ability as well we could give him, so he can change to the different elements or types. There is an ability that does that. What was the name of that? If you know that, type it in the comments. Then the second attack is Body Press. Body press relies on the defense of the user instead of its attack. I personally don't like it too much, but it works with Chopper and his different points doing like body press attacks. It just fits into Chopper having all kinds of different attacks. And then we have Rollout. Rollout would work with Chopper going into his heavy point, I think. No, not his heavy point, his guard point, and then rolling around in that form. But I think there are much better fits for his attacks like these next few. For example, I gave Chopper Mega Horn, which is just there because he's a reindeer and reindeers have antlers. He even has a point where his antlers increase in size. It's called Horn Point. So going into Horn Point and then using Mega Horn would be just so cool to see in a Pokemon scenario. And then his last attack would be a Revival Blessing, or Recovery Prayer if you use the Japanese name. This is a new move that is very much game breaking in my opinion, and I don't see how the Pokemon Company just introduced this in the latest game. I thought this would have been a case much sooner. Revival Blessing is a new move where you can actually revive a party member that has already fainted. Only to half of their HP, but that's still a big thing. So if Zorro goes down, Chopper can use this move to just recover Zorro to half of his HP again to throw him back into battle, which happened more than once already, so I feel like this is very much fitting. But now let's go to Robin. Robin is a dark psychic type, which is a very interesting choice here, and her abilities Analytic and Magician are also very niche, and I personally don't like them, but I had no idea what to give her instead of them. So Analytic boosts move power when the Pokemon moves lasts. So that would just mean that Robin should be a slow attacker, but I don't think Robin is very slow. She's just an assassin, and assassins are supposed to be fast, so Analytic is not really the thing I would give her. Maybe instead of if you move last, the power increases, if you move first, the power increases, which would be a very nice twist on this ability. And then the second ability is Magician. And Magician is an ability where you steal a held item of the Pokemon you hit, but I don't think Robin is very much a thief. I mean, the only time we saw her steal things is things like a situation where she jokingly takes the Straw Hat from Luffy or some other things like that, but I think there are better fits for her. Now as for her attacks. All her attacks are just things where you use your hands or your feet, like Throat Chop, Knock Off, Stomp, or Psychic Fangs. I don't think Psychic Fangs is the best fit. Maybe it's a homage to her Diablo ability, but I think one ability that's much better, even though it's a bit weaker, is Double Slap, because we've seen Robin slap people more than once already. But let's go to the next character as well. This is Franky. I just noticed that I accidentally emoted the entire time. Now it should be fixed and I'm looking normal once again. So Franky is a pure steel type, and as you can see his abilities are sturdy and full metal body, and his moves are Iron Defense, Meteor Mash, Flash Cannon and Zap Cannon. Sturdy is an ability that negates one-hit KO attacks, which just fits into Franky's abilities of being a very tough guy and not being knocked down so easily. Him fighting against Senior Pink has been a lot of inspiration for these different things. So his second ability as well, Full Metal Body, is the signature ability of Solgaleo, the legendary Pokemon from Sun and Moon. It prevents anybody from reducing the stats of Franky, which is an interesting take, but I would just like an ability where Franky's defense increases as well, so maybe the ability that Sanji has would also be a nice fit for Franky. And then we get into his attacks. Iron Defense, as you can see here, is just you boost your defense stat by 2 stages to make yourself more tanky. So if Iron Defense is a thing, I think Franky also should have the Body Press move that we have seen with Chopper. Iron Defense boosts your defense, and then you can use Body Press because that move, instead of using your attack, uses your defense stat. Other moves Franky has are, for example, Meteor Mash. Meteor Mash is just Franky being a boxer and using a strong right or a hammer's left, fire's left, whatever the attacks from him are called. So he has Meteor Mash as well. Maybe it's strongest fist attack. And then he has beam attacks. A lot of variation of beast attacks with his forward beam, with his laser beam, with his other beams. Fire beams are there, fire breath, so flamethrower would also be a fit. But the 3 beam moves I decided on are Flash Cannon, Zap Cannon, and Steel Beam. Steel Beam probably being his ultimate attack because it has the highest base power out of all of these abilities here. But now we should get to Brook. Brook is the last member that joined the crew in the pre-time skip era, and obviously he should be a ghost type. He's a skeleton after all, and his abilities, Kyle gave him Intimidate, which lowers the foe's attack by 1 stage, and Unnerve, which hinders the enemy to eat any berries, probably because Brook is so scary and people don't really know how to handle a skeleton. I gave him something else, but let's go through everything Kyle gave him first before we go to my own thing. Kyle gave him the attacks Purge Song, Shadow Sneak, Night Slash, and Play Rough. I can see where he came from with some of them, but another one like Play Rough, I have no idea why Brook has Play Rough, but I feel like I have a better idea for what Brook should be. So my idea of Brook is basically Toxtricity from Sword and Shield. He has the signature ability called Punk Rock. Punk Rock is an ability that boosts the power of sound-based moves by 30%. And also, Brook would take less damage from sound-based moves himself. So my version of Brook would have the attacks Sing, to make people fall asleep, which we have seen him do already in the anime. Boom Burst, which is just he makes some sort of loud sound wave explosion and hits the enemy with that. Clangorous Soul, which is a move which increases all of his stats. And then also the Z move, which is the power-up move of Clangorous Soul, which is called Clangorous Soul Blaze or Blazing Soul Beat. I decided on them because they are obviously also sound type attacks, but they also have the thing with soul inside of them. And because he is Soul King Brook, I thought those two very much fit into his character. And his last attack, while it isn't sound-based, it's still very much Brook, it's Ice Burn. It's a very strong attack, and Brook uses it to freeze his enemies and take care of other problems in his way. Like he froze the flames when he and Robin were escaping through Onigashima. But now let's get into the last member of the Straw Hat Pirates. His name is Jimbei, Jimbei the Fishman. Jimbei is a water dragon type because he is basically Dondozo from Pokemon. His two signature abilities are Iron Fist, which increases the power of punching moves by 20%, and Swift Swim, which increases his speed if there is rain outside. So if we go with the double mechanics that are used in competitive Pokemon, Jimbei and Nami would make for a pretty good team. And Jimbei's ability are all based on Fishman Karate. That's obviously why his first attack name would be Karate Chopper. And then we go over to the next one, which is Jet Punch. Then we have Dragon Hammer, and then we have Twister. Jimbei having Twister is another point why I didn't want to give Zorro Twister, because I don't like doubling things, but sometimes it just happens. So these are the Straw Hats and their Pokemon moves. What do you think about them? I think I covered everything I wanted to, and so all that's left for me to say is stay happy, stay healthy, and most importantly, stay cultured. See you in the next video. Bye!